Today, we're going to explore how we can use Python to do machine learning using a single library that has dozens to hundreds of different machine learning models inside a single library. So a library that a lot of data scientists use is a library called Scikit Learn, which we just abbreviate to sklearn. So Scikit-learn or sklearn is a Python library that is all about machine learning. Here's the learn part of the sklearn. And all sklearn machine learning modules have the same basic framework. So once we understand how to use them, we're going to be able to use any machine learning algorithm by using the same source code, just replacing the model that we want to use. So the idea behind every single machine learning model is there is going to be 3 steps. The first step is we need to create an instance of the model. So we'll often say inside code, we'll say model is equal to some code that creates a new instance of the model. So if our model might be linear regression, we'd say model equals linear regression. And we may initialize the linear regression with various options here. So we need to create a new model, and this creates an instance of the model that the computer is going to then teach and program into a model that's going to be able to predict outcomes. The second thing is then we need to train the model on data. And to train the model, the function that we're going to use on the model is always going to be model.fit. And Carly, you said there's going to be independent and dependent variables, right?
Yes, there's going to be x's and a y.
So what are we going to use as the input, and what's going to be the predicted value?
So the input is always going to be our x variable or x variables if we're doing multiple linear regression, but those are going to be our independent variables. Independent variables.
Yep, so we're going to specify our independent variables as the first parameter inside of our fit, and this is going to be basically our x values. And then our x values in a supervised learning model is going to help us predict our y values, right?
Exactly, yes, and those are our dependent values. The y values are dependent on our x's.
Dependent or y values. So we're always going to do a model.fit, which is going to fit our model to our independent and dependent variables, which we're going to usually have as a data frame. So we're usually going to specify a data frame and simply say df at, and then we'll go ahead and list all of the variables that we might want to use. So if we have a data set that includes weight and height, remind me, did you use weight to predict height or height to predict weight?
I used height to predict weight.
So I would say my variable list just contains height, and then it's going to be used to predict the variable weight. And here in the independent values, you have a list inside of the data frame because you may have multiple independent variables.
Exactly.
But you always end up having only one dependent variable. So you're going to end up with just a single variable to predict. And then once you've trained the model, this has the model learn exactly what's happening in the data. In the example of linear regression, you've got all of these points inside a linear regression, and the model is going to say, with all of these points, I have found the line of best fit right here. And given this straight line, I can now use this straight line to predict future data. And what that means is I can go ahead and now take data that may have never seen before. So I now have a new person whose height is right here. And I can again go up to the line, and where the point meets the line, I can now use that to predict the weight. And to do that, I am going to use model.predict. And then I'm going to give the independent or x values inside of the parameter inside of predict. And that's going to then predict the return value here is going to be the dependent predictions. So you're never going to have to give a dependent variable because that is exactly what the model is predicting. So it doesn't matter what model we're using. We're going to see this for every single model we're looking at, where first step's always going to be create the model in Python. Second step's always going to be to fit the model or train the model. The third step is always going to be using predict to predict the outcome. And that's it. It's as simple as 3 lines of code to do machine learning in Python. And it's really on you to understand what the underlying model is doing, because the Python is super simple, but you have to understand the actual math, statistics, and data science behind it so you can know if this is the right model to use and how the output of this model can actually be interpreted. Because Python's just going to give you a number, but if you don't know what that number means, then the model isn't actually valuable to you at all.